That's milk from the last time I drank from that cup for a video. That's not good. Greetings, distinguished followers, chosen chimp here, and welcome to my slightly echoey base of operations for the foreseeable future. Why am I doing all of this? Well, I'll tell you why, but first let me show you my Doctor Who stuff. Look, I've got books, comics, VHS tapes, clothing. Turn around there, you see a little Cyberman's head poking out. And this is Primus, just because I know you guys like it when I wear that t-shirt. So why? Well, I'll tell you why. You see, I have a rather big itinerary of Doctor Who Chosen Chimp videos that I need to make. I need to tie up the great loose end that is Planet 14, the definition of which has been expanded now that Big Finish have had the audacity to release some new Cybermen related content. And I know what you're thinking, Audacity involves the Cyber Wars and possibly the Vogons, and is technically not really anything to do with Planet 14. However, when I was scripting my Planet 14, I was going to dedicate a big chunk of that video to talking about the Cyber Wars as a kind of segue into my future video on Revenge of the Cybermen. So Audacity needs to be covered. Definition expanded. The same goes for my Dalek video, my 20 Patreon celebration Dalek video that I was going to make, and then the BBC had decided to imminently land a colorized version of that story. And how can I not mention that on my video? Definition expanded. I've also got a ton of wonderful Patreon requests, most of which I remember off the top of my head. The Crotons, Terror of the Zygons, the Sea Devils, Nobody, No One from the Audio Deafener family, whatever that is. I'm looking forward to finding out. And somebody even asked me to cover this. More than 30 years in the TARDIS. So as a Who-tuber, as a content creator, I got lots to cover. However, here is the wonderfully pleasant caveat. Doctor Who's on. The 60th anniversary. The specials. The imminent landing of a brand new era of Doctor Who. I've got to be there for that, folks. I've got to cover this stuff. So here we are. My humble abode. Where I will be for every TV story that lands. Starting next week with the Star Beast. It drops on Saturday. On Sunday, I will be dropping my review. The following week, Wild Blue Yonder. It's dropping Saturday. My review will be landing Sunday, and so on, so forth, the giggle as well. And then a small intermission before we get to Boxing Day, and that is covering the Doctor Who Christmas Day holiday special, Disney Plus's best kept secret, The Church on Ruby Road, the title of which we all know. Sorry, just gonna... These videos will be largely unedited, unscripted, save for a few bullet points, uncensored, unimpressive, because that is the only way that I can get this content out to you guys in rapid succession. So I'm going to be doing stupid things like drinking water whenever my throat gets dry. So this one is a kind of experiment. Welcome everybody, and I want your participation, please. I want you to riff off the conversation that I'm about to have, and I want you to talk Doctor Who excessively in the comment section. Let's get together, let's celebrate this great occasion that is the 60th anniversary. I am so pumped up for it after those trailers. It looks amazing. It really, really does. David Tennant returning as the Doctor, Catherine Tate returning as Donna Noble, and all this fresh blood. Ncuti Gatwa, Yasmin Finney, Millie Gibson at some point. This kind of changing of the guard. Russell T Davies. I'm so pumped, and I hope it is as good as I'm hoping it will be. So, hello, let's talk about this stuff. I mean, let's talk about some of the stuff that's dropping. I'll touch on the Whoniverse in a minute. The most recent thing we got was the Children in Need special, Destination Skaro. Just one of the many trinkets that us Doctor Who fans have been treated to in preparation for this great celebration of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. 60 years, folks. That is very impressive. Destination Skaro. A 5-minute bit of fun and a reimagining of Davros, which has sparked a lively and passionate debate on the internet. And I, the Chosen Chimp, are going to respectfully skip over that and talk about a more pressing concern, and that is this apparent addition to the canon that David Tennant's Doctor invented the name Dalek and its plungy appendage thing. Wow, that's pretty deep for a 5-minute Children in Need teaser special type thing. Poor fandom, wiki fandom, having to kind of almost rewrite the entire history of the genesis of the Daleks. I mean, wow. I'm not too sure about this Doctor going back in time and fulfilling things trope. I've come across at least 2 examples where this particular Doctor contributed to inventing Cybermen. Once in Genesis of the Cybermen, which I covered recently, Jerry Davis's short story, and I think he did it in spare parts as well. I think there was a bit at the end when the Cybermen, as they were getting started on Mondas, pilfered a load of information from the Doctor, which kind of progressed the lineage of Cybermen as we knew it to begin with anyway. And it's just so, yeah, I mean, he's done it again now with the Daleks. Not sure how I feel about that, or how the fandom's going to feel about that. But, I mean, it was just a 5-minute bit of fun. So let's take it with a pinch of salt. It's just a bit of a laugh, isn't it? If you really don't like the fact that the Doctor has apparently pioneered the word Dalek, you can always assume possibly that they're dolls in the toy maker's house. I don't know. Just saying. But yeah, good fun. So that's that. Covered. Done. We don't need to talk about that anymore. You're welcome. So the Whoniverse. Now this is something that I'm only going to touch on kind of briefly because I am aware that I have a fair few followers overseas. The US, Canada, Australia, other countries who do not have access to this insane plethora of content that the BBC have dropped on iPlayer. Every single classic Doctor Who adventure with the exception of Unearthly Child. And all the documentaries. No, not the documentaries. What am I saying? See, this is a stipulation of not editing. I'd have cut that bit out. All the spin-offs, Torchwood, Class, Sarah Jane Adventures, a host of documentaries, and other stuff. One of the things that took me by surprise, I was not expecting to have such an emotional roller coaster imposed upon me, was the Tales of the TARDIS stories. These kind of thematic reimaginings of classic Doctor Who stories where they get mashed together with no abridged rolling credits or anything, so they play out like one TV movie, and they are introed and outroed by some brand new footage of the Doctors and companions who were involved in that classic story, having a conversation about it in, what's it called again, like a memory TARDIS. It's kind of filled with all this paraphernalia, all this antique retro junk of all Doctor Who stories from all eras. And we get classic companions such as Jo Grant and Perry and Tegan. One of the dudes from Sarah Jane Adventures, I think, in the Three Doctors story. And Peter Davison's Doctor, Colin Baker's Doctor, and Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. As you would expect, the Earthshock Tales of the TARDIS is rather poignant because once again they are reminiscing over the death of their fallen comrade, Adric. So I was kind of prepared to take a bit of an emotional ride, but I think the one that hit me the most was actually the Curse of Fenric, because I made a video about Curse of Fenric a couple of years ago, and I talked about how powerful a story it was and how it impacted the character of Ace and added a new dimension to her vulnerability, and also added a new dimension to the Doctor's ability to switch off his compassion for the greater good. And I think the Tales of the TARDIS outro especially kind of riffed off that. It was a really sort of poignant conversation that the Doctor and Ace had, but then suddenly it just goes into a big adventure where they crank up this bizarre TARDIS and fly off into space. Guest writers, I think Russell T Davies wrote one of them, and it's quite interesting. There's a sort of almost Tom Baker as the curator in the 50th-esque mystique about why in the Blue Blazes these Doctors can return as old men when we know that they regenerated before that. It's almost like it happens in a dream state, or maybe a parallel universe. McCoy's Doctor kind of touches on the fact that they've grown a little bit with a bit more self-awareness than the other old companions do. But besides that, I think it leaves enough open-endedness, enough non-explanation for the audience to apply their own theories and their own imagination as to why this thing might be happened. Maybe it is all a dream, but it's cool. It's a great concept, and I think it's one of those things actually where the less they explain it, the better, because it just leaves room for the audience to just get involved and kind of think about what it all meant. So they were great, and I think they're one of the best things that I've seen on the Whoniverse, but there's so much, and no, I haven't watched it all, because how can I? If I did, I wouldn't be able to go to work or just get dressed or have breakfast or anything, because there's loads of it. So I think it's going to take a while to cover it, but it's good that it's there, that you can kind of drop in. It's really, really hyping up the excitement for this great institution that is Doctor Who. It's kind of more alive than it's ever been, and it's looking towards the future, but it's also celebrating everything that came before it. And it's doing both of those things on an equal footing, which to me makes it perfect for a Doctor Who fan. So, love the Whoniverse, and it's a shame, again, that it's not available to Australian viewers, American viewers, so on and so forth, because it should be, because it's great content. I don't know what the deal is with Disney, just because, I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I just don't. Not very good. Okay, so where are we? Here are my notes. Very unprofessional. So next week, the first of the 60th anniversary specials, The Star Beast. Written by Pat Mills and drawn by Dave Gibbons, also of Watchmen fame, which he would do 6 years down the line. And this is a comic that came out in the 1980s. Very rare, very hard to get hold of. It's not really hard to get hold of, because they reissued it in this Doctor Who 4th Doctor anthology. It's got the actual new diamond logo. There you go, it says there, look. Includes Star Beast as seen on TV. That's a bit preemptive. Opportunist business people. So this got released this year. It's got loads of cool comics. This was a really, really exciting, intelligent, political era of Doctor Who comic book making. Lots of contributions from lots of writers who would do lots of work in stuff like Marvel, 2000 AD, etc, etc. So when the Star Beast drops next week, part of my review is I will be comparing and contrasting some of the things in the Star Beast that happens in the TV story compared with some of the things that happens in this comic. I know they're not going to be exactly the same, because it's the 4th Doctor, and it's a companion who is exclusive to the comics, and so on and so forth. So stuff will be different. But I think there will be certain homages and certain references that people who have read that comic will enjoy. So yeah, that's where I am going with that. Now, confession time. I only really made this video just so I could kind of waffle on about Doctor Who and what it's meant to me in recent years. When I say recent years, the Christopher Eccleston reboot, which is kind of where this new age of Doctor Who kick-started, when everyone thought the TV product was kind of dead, never to be brought back. I do believe that some call it the wilderness years, and there is a very strong presence in novels and comics and audio which kept the spirit of Doctor Who alive, but there was nothing on TV until the Christopher Eccleston series came out in 2005, and I wasn't immediately sold on this as a Doctor Who fan at the time. However, I loved the energy and I loved the charisma of Eccleston's Doctor, but the actual TV stories themselves, it took a bit of doing before I came round to it. I think it was kind of Parting of the Ways, which is still kind of heralded as one of the best TV finales, when everything sort of clicked back into place, and ever since then, I never looked back. I loved the whole David Tennant saga. I thought the way they brought back the Master was brilliant, and one of my favourite things about these series was that kind of anticipation for the finales, the way that they would trickle feed all these little clues throughout the series as to what was going to happen in the end. You know, like in the first series it was Bad Wolf, in the second series it was Torchwood, in the third series it was Mr. Saxon, in the fourth series it was Rose Tyler popping up in different places. In the TV specials, it was the He Will Knock 4 times thing, so on and so forth. And they added a really interesting level of mystique. So even when I wasn't watching Doctor Who, I was thinking about Doctor Who because I was excited for how it would end because of this little information that they planted in my brain. That is one of the things that I would love to see in the 60th, which I think was almost completely absent, save for a few little tips and ideas that came about in the Jodie Whittaker stories like Captain Jack. Okay, full disclosure, I did do a little edit there because I talked myself into a corner. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, Chris Chibnall, the Chris Chibnall era, the Jodie Whittaker era, I'm not going to dunk on it. I actually think I was a little bit unfair in my Power of the Doctor review. I watched that again with my son and thought, do you know what, this is actually a worthy closure to a somewhat troubled saga. I think everyone showed up, the Daleks were good at being Daleks, the Cybermen were being good at Cybermen, and the Master absolutely knocked it out the park. Jodie Whittaker's exit was very humble and very classy, and I just moaned about it anyway, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I was a little bit more fair. So if you watch that video, I kind of sort of disagree with the more disgruntled nuances that I did in that video. What can I say? I changed my mind. But yeah, Mystique, please bring that back. I was going to talk just about some of the Doctor Who stuff that I loved, and I think that's why I got tongue-tied, because I had so many different memories of so many stuff I love. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you about one, and then I'm going to let you guys tell me your favourite Doctor Who stuff. Doesn't have to be modern, doesn't have to be classic, it can be either or, book, audio, comic, anything, any part of the Doctor Who universe that has really made you feel, that has really struck a chord, that has really brought out an emotion in you. Please tell me if you like, because I'm really sort of coming round to this idea of projecting more feeling into my videos. I tried to do it with my Croton video of talking more about the emotional impact that stuff like Doctor Who can have, and you know, it's hard to explain to someone that doesn't like Doctor Who, because on the surface seems a bit silly, doesn't it? Slovene, those little creatures made of fat. But then you got the Doctor crying over the Master and things like that, and the iceberg goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So anyway, the mystique is one of the things that I love about modern Doctor Who, and one of my favourite examples was when I was living in a flat with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, and I do believe she was pregnant with my first child, and it was or our first child, should I say. It was the first Matt Smith series. And the 2-part Angel story had dropped. And I watched it, enjoyed it. And then I got a phone call from my friend James, who for privacy purposes will remain unnamed in this video. And he told me, he said, Ash, you know Flesh and Stone? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, there's that bit where Amy Pond closes her eyes. She can't open them. And Matt Smith's Doctor gives her some words of encouragement. And then he walks off and then immediately comes back in. But now he's dressed differently. And what he's talking about has got nothing to do with the episode. And I was like, really? So I went on BBC iPlayer on our rubbish internet that we had in that flat at the time, back in 2010, and I watched that scene over and over again, absolutely fascinated by what it meant and why he had come back from a different time at that exact point. The fact that it was so subtle that you'd overlook it the first time. And then, of course, in the finale, it's revealed because the TARDIS has exploded, he's bouncing back across time, trying to get Amy Pond to remember him so he doesn't get blinkered from existence forever. And there are a couple of examples where Stephen Moffat has done this, and the payoff might not necessarily be as good as the mystique that the little clues built up. But that was one example where I could not get Doctor Who out of my head because I wanted to know why the Doctor had turned up in this little scene. And that is what Stephen Moffat was brilliant. And yes, he definitely learnt that from Russell T Davies. He learnt from the best, but I think he took it to a whole nother level. I mean, what about the next series, man? Madame Kavarian with the little letterboxes popping up everywhere. That was brilliant. So weird and so creepy. So, a little bit of mystique. I'll say it one more time. A little bit of a scare factor. Please bring it back in new Doctor Who. I miss it. Russell T Davies is not going to beat around the bush. He's got things on his mind. He has got stuff he wants to say. I think this is going to be an extremely emotional roller coaster of Doctor Who, and I'm there for it. It's a reflection of the times. I cannot wait to see what Ncuti Gatwa delivers as a Doctor. We've seen 2 contrasting snippets of him on these trailers. And I think they're interesting, and they're contrasting because in the first trailer that was dropped just after Jodie Whittaker regenerated, you see David Tennant popping out the TARDIS in a kind of composed, what's going on? And then you get this flustered Ncuti Gatwa going, somebody tell me what the hell is going on here. But in the new trailers, it's almost the opposite, and this is where I get really excited for these 60th anniversary specials, is the fact that Tennant's Doctor, he is doing the thing that Tennant was really good at, and that is freaking out and getting upset. He's banging on the walls, shouting, I can't remember what he's shouting, but he looks really flustered. Unit are in firefights, the toy maker's there with his puppet strings, loads of little plumes of smoke across London. It's chaos, and the Doctor seems out of his depth. And then at the end, you see Ncuti Gatwa just angelic, radiant, calm, composed, like he's saying, don't worry guys, I've got this. Now, trailers are edited in a certain way to make things look good, I know that, but if that is what we're going to get in the 60th anniversary specials, that kind of build-up of chaos that results in this changing of the guard where the Doctor is so cool and so collective and so absolute that he can do something that Tennant's Doctor just didn't quite have the capacity to do, then I think this could be the best intro to a new Doctor ever. I don't think it's strange that Tennant's Doctor has made a return, because when you think about anniversary specials, it's in the great tradition. He was there for the 50th. Think about the 5 Doctors. Think about the 3 Doctors, which was the 10th anniversary. It's a kind of celebration. And there's been so many leaks and so many little tips that there are going to be other people showing up. I don't want to invest too much in this, because I want to be surprised, which is why I've stayed away from articles that have discovered new information. I want to go into this relatively in the dark as to what's going to happen. So that is where I am at, and I do believe, distinguished followers, that I have waffled on enough. I don't think there's anything else on my points that I want to cover here. Star Beast comic, yeah, I've covered that. When you're watching the Star Beast, think of Dr. Manhattan all blue with his bum out. I'm not going to say that. That was a terrible idea. This is where you guys come in. Please get in the comments. Tell me what you've loved about Doctor Who. And I will cease to be a stuck record. But I would love you guys to tune in for my reviews. And thank you for sticking with this video until the end. Patreon, yeah. £1 a month, become a distinguished follower. Request your story, classic story, for review. Maybe just skim across the channel, and yeah, you get the idea. I'm gonna go, but thank you so much. And yeah, I've been the chosen chimp. I needed to read that just to remind myself as to who I was. I'm the chosen chimp. Happy 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, and I will see you next week. It'll go better next time, I promise. Have a good one.